Cats and dogs, the Yankees and the Red Sox, the Sharks and the Jets.
Or Scots and other Scots. Damn Scots! They ruined Scotland!
Like oil and water, there are some feuds that are seemingly eternal, with no end appearing on the horizon. I'm not talking about two rappers who duel each other lyrically and will eventually squash that beef and make peace. I'm talking about disputes that will only end when one or both parties are in their literal grave. Well, I've encountered one that has managed to reach hilarious levels of pettiness between two giants of the cooking world. Even if you don't know much about cooking or food reality TV shows, you probably know who Gordon Ramsay is. And you probably know him as the esteemed chef who goes into other people's restaurants and yells at everyone, or runs his own restaurants and yells at everyone. He's shouty, sweary, and isn't afraid to tell anyone how shit they are at what they do. An archetypal representation at this point. But did you know that not only is he not the first chef to become famous for this, he was actually trained under the OG, overly demanding, unreasonable, unhinged British chef, who not only trained Gordon on the fine art of both cooking and being a gigantic asshole, but did so to such a high degree that he made him cry.
No, I didn't make Gordon Ramsay cry. He made himself cry. That was his choice to cry.
Meet Marco Pierre White, who in 1995 became the youngest chef to be awarded 3 Michelin stars. Known for his erratic behavior, which included throwing out diners if he didn't like what they had to say, or berating anyone in his warpath, which included a young cook in training by the name of Gordon Ramsay. On this incident, Pierre White said, quote, "I don't recall what he'd done wrong, but I yelled at him and he lost it. Gordon crouched in the corner of the kitchen, buried his head in his hands, and started sobbing." When asked about this, a spokesman for Gordon Ramsay stated that there was some truth to it, but Ramsay was just 20 years old at the time and had just started working in restaurants. But okay, that was just a story about something that happened several decades ago. Surely they must have buried the hatchet, right? Wrong, because 20 years later, Ramsay and White happened to be dining at the same restaurant when Marco Pierre White demanded the owner throw Gordon out. The owner, not wanting to ask a celebrity to leave, approached Gordon and suggested he speak to Marco, which he did, and the conversation went something like this. "Thank you very much, Marco, for ruining a nice day, you fat bastard. I've always wanted to call you that." But okay, that story reportedly happened decades ago. Surely these two must have patched things up by now, right? Wrong! I told you, this feud will never die. It transcends space, time, and as I've recently discovered, it's gone online. Now, I'm not exactly Gordon Ramsay's biographer, but when I think of him, I think of 3 dishes. 1, his world-famous beef Wellington recipe, which he is most well known for and has served to royalty. 2, his famously terrible grilled cheese sandwich that everybody on the internet made fun of him for. But between these two chronologically are his famous scrambled eggs, which went viral back in the early days of Reddit. They became famous because he was able to introduce young people to relatively simple techniques that almost anyone could replicate to produce something that could normally only be found in a fine dining restaurant. Cook it low and slow, control your heat, finish with cream to produce beautifully silky scrambled eggs. All over the internet, people tried out Gordon's recipe and sang its praises. Enter Marco Pierre White, who, despite no longer working in restaurant kitchens, is also no stranger to producing recipe videos on the internet. And oh look, he too has made a video about making beautifully decadent scrambled eggs. Why, I wonder what he has to say on the subject.
Most people like to take their eggs and whisk them with a fork and turn them into baby food. I don't. Eggs in the pan, then I puncture the yolks and cook slowly.
Butter, eggs, pan, scramble them in the pan while they're cooking. Same as Gordon, got it.
The secret behind the scrambled egg is to start it on a nice sort of generous heat, take it off the heat, go back to the heat, take it off the heat.
Just work them slowly, the other side of the pan. My palm can take it just. That tells me it's the perfect temperature to create the perfect scrambled eggs. If you have to take your pan off the stove, then you're lacking understanding in temperature.
Take it off the heat, go back to the heat, take it off the heat.
If you have to take your pan off the stove, then you're lacking understanding in temperature.
I come back off the heat.
If you have to take your pan off the stove, then you're lacking understanding in temperature.
And just let it work. And just do this 3 or 4 times.
Question why you're doing what you're doing.
Bro, this dude made a diss track out of scrambled eggs. Against someone he's been shit-talking for close to half a century. Like, goddamn, that is so petty it's almost impressive. And for his part, Gordon Ramsay has tried to squash this beef many times. Whenever he is asked about Marco Pierre White, he has nothing to say other than that he is grateful for everything he has taught him, and the closest he has come to saying anything negative about him is to call it sad that he won't let it go. But Marco, if nothing else, is a man of principle. A man who will not compromise his beliefs for anything. And that is a recipe for a beef that will never die.